Welcome to the Color of Success podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. Many of us are feeling a wide range of emotions: sadness, anger, fear, sometimes hopelessness and helplessness. This season, we will be exploring all the feelings and ways to empower each other to take action. So, let's go. Game on. Neha Kumar is the co-founder and COO of Full Glass Wine Company, a trailblazing parent company shaping the future of the wine industry through pioneering direct-to-consumer brands. As a seasoned maven with over 14 years of experience, Neha is a changemaker in the world of startups, and through Full Glass Wine Company is on a dynamic mission to cultivate the next wave of revolutionary consumer brands. In addition to co-founding Full Glass Wine Company, Neha is also a lecturer at UCLA's Anderson School of Management. Prior to launching her fund, Neha played a key role in Create and Cultivate's rise to success, holding the helm as its COO and CFO until its successful majority stake acquisition by a private equity firm in 2021. Her prowess in deal-making came from her time in banking and shone brightly throughout her career. Now, alongside leading Full Glass Wine Company, Neha utilizes her experience to teach high net worth women the ins and outs of investing and deal making with the Women's Abundance Collective. Well, Neha, thank you so much for joining me today on The Color of Success. It's a beautiful Friday, and I don't get to often talk with wine moguls. So thank you.
Thank you, of course. And it's a beautiful Friday where it is 100 degrees outside.
Absolutely. Well, I'm thinking, we're right by Napa Valley over here in the Bay Area. But tell me about your, I guess, non-traditional journey, because there's very few C-suite folks that are powerful women of color. So I'm just very interested in learning more about what led you down this path.
When I was in high school in my biology class, I remember always going to my biology teacher. I was actually always thought I was going to be pre-med in life. South Asian, growing up in Orange County. My parents were immigrants. I was first generation. So going into certain types of fields, as a lot of people I'm sure can relate with, is pretty much par for the course. I remember spending so much time agonizing in my bio class, thinking, what am I going to do? I know my parents want me to go into medicine. What's going to happen? And, one thing he used to always tell me, my teacher, which was so amazing, he said, it's not about what you want to do. It's about what you want to do next. And that for me really struck a chord, and it made me feel as if so much pressure had been relieved from my whole entire body, that I didn't have to have everything figured out. I didn't need to be a South Asian person, a woman, always standing out, always trying to excel over everything in life, but just figure out what I wanted to do next. My life has been a series of going out, trying different things, seeing what works for me, but always in the spirit of learning and having fun. And one thing has led to another in a pretty magical way, and it's very fortuitous.
Yeah, I want to be part of your next girls' trip. Let's just put that out there. It sounds like a lot of fun. And I think we have similar values in that case. I don't think that our careers are linear, like, Asian parents want to kind of lay out there, especially immigrant parents that are just like, all right, college, grad school, you become a doctor, etc. And we realize, like, for mental health purposes, that's not always the best way. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It isn't. And it's the concept of self-care is very interesting. I think that self-care has been memeified, I guess you can say,
Yes.
in regards to spas and manicures and things. Self-care means different things to different people. And self-care is taking care of yourself in ways that you can learn and you can enjoy life. It could be enjoying time with your family. It could be reading. It could actually be learning more. One of the things that worked out for me, which is a very interesting thing because it was a form of self-care, was I loved teaching. I actually loved teaching because when I was teaching, I started off teaching SAT math. in line with my South Asian upbringing. I thought, you know what, I
Yes.
spent so much time studying for SAT math. So when I went to undergrad, I started teaching SAT math one-on-one to students, and I started teaching classes, and it was amazing, and it made me feel good. It made me feel good because I could contribute in a way. It made me feel good that a lot of the work that I had done was helping other people. And it also made me feel good because it's like a sport when you're teaching, especially when you get to the classroom level. You're so present. You're not thinking about anything else in the world. And it's actually your moment of a break. I then started teaching CPA review for Becker. I taught for, I don't know, 13, 14 years. And then after that, I taught undergrad at USC, and then I've been teaching at UCLA for a long time now. Teaching was my form of self-care because it has you pause. And especially and I teach undergrad students for a long time, and undergrad students will ask you questions that you would not have anticipated. And they ask you a question in such a way, you're like, wait, I didn't think about that. And it causes me to be present. But if you think about it, Stephanie, my form of self-care is part of my work
Mhm.
because I also teach. And a lot of these things can be one. And it's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm more along the lines of work-life harmony because I do think that what we enjoy can become part of our professional duties or identity. And especially, I think Gul Nihan says, what do I want to be when I grow up? Happy. And I look more for contentment. I do think that teaching helps kind of give you a lens of the current generation and how they're conceptualizing issues and the psychosocial things that are kind of going on. So, tell me more about what do you see as the current business landscape overall, because we're going through unprecedented times, and in relation to, your specific industry.
Stephanie, I think I've heard unprecedented times, and I know we both have been hearing that a lot recently in the market the past so many months. I mean, I've been hearing that my whole life, it feels like. Everyone thinks every time is different or unprecedented. I look at it almost as if you're tilling the soil. Every once in a while, the soil's sitting there for a while and it needs to get tilled. And the tilling is uncomfortable for everybody because you're pulling the roots, you're pulling the soil, you're making people uncomfortable because human beings change can be hard for a lot of people and we get comfortable with our roots where we are. But the tilling of the soil is what ultimately creates a better, healthier environment for a lot of people involved. And it's good for the overall general growth. And so, in regards to the environment and the market right now, I think it's always be grounded, know where you are, and then keep your eye out for opportunities that are around you. During 2020, 2021, that's what everybody was saying. This is unexpected. These were unprecedented times because we had a global pandemic. Places were shut down, things were going on in the world. And I noticed interest rates were suppressed low, so low that they had never been that way since the Great Depression, right? And so if interest rates are so low for an extended period of time, essentially what ends up occurring is you have obviously there's a lot of capital that's flooding the market, but people are competing for cash or competing to invest into things. So I started to keep my eye out for different investment opportunities because I said this isn't going to last forever.
Yeah.
And that's the impetus essentially for Full Glass Wine.
Well, and I'm so glad that that happened during that time in terms of interest rates because I was able to refinance at a good rate, and now
Well,
we're at,
congratulations,
we're at
Stephanie.
like ten
But see,
percent. What are we at?
here's the thing, Stephanie, right? You could have sat there and you could have said, this is a hard time, this is going on in the world. But you said, you're like, listen, I'm smart. I know how this works. This is a phenomenal time for me to refinance. I should jump on it. And that's where we are today, right now, too. So you don't want to just look at this moment, but you want to see what are the things that might be coming up in the market. And honestly, that's how we look at visionaries. Visionaries have the ability to see what's going to be happening, what's going to be coming up, and keep their eye out for the next thing.
So, I mean, this podcast is about learning essentially. What do you see as what is coming up?
I think that there is, in regards to the startup space, because that's the world that I'm in, I think that before I said there was going to be a lot of startups that were going to be in need of additional cash, and there's going to be challenges at the cap table level, at the capitalization table. So the original owners of the company, everybody came in at such different varying price points, you are going to see challenges occur. Now, what I think is there's a lot less capital floating in the marketplace, and I think there is a huge need for smart angels and smart investors to be helping earlier stage founders. Because before they had the ability to go out there and access capital easily, now they're going to have been more thoroughly vetted only just because, right? It's harder to get capital. And so you're going to have ones that have a better business model or people that have more tough armor, essentially. They're going to be the ones that are going to make it, a little bit further along in the life cycle if you're looking at a company. But this is a great market for people who have some years under their belt and experience and maybe even a small amount of capital to help some of these earlier stage companies and potentially even really financially prosper. And so that's what I'm looking for in the market all the time right now is I really think there's going to be a huge influx of these companies who've been naturally sifted through the current market selection. And we're going to see some really great companies come out of this time period.
So walk me through kind of the minutia though. You go into possible funding conversations. And I think, a lot of folks could be intimidated doing that, especially if they're more early stage. What are some things to keep in mind or rehearse for to some extent? Of course, everything can't be rehearsed, but what kinds of things would you consider in preparation?
I think the biggest thing is to really showcase how much you care about what you're doing. When you do, your whole body shows it. People get excited and they're connected towards what you're talking about. It's contagious. So, number one, first and foremost, is that a lot of the things can be learned, but energy and drive, that's not something that other people can teach you.
Hmm.
I can go through with someone and say, listen, this is what normally right now a safe looks like. This is normally what a Series A is going to go for a company of your size. I can tell it to you. ChatGPT can tell it to you. Claude can tell it to you. Other people can tell it to you too. So even if you don't know it, you could find it out really fast. But that energy and drive combined with discipline and consistency, that is not something that you can easily teach people. So how do you prepare yourself? You want to showcase that you have these values and you are ready to bring it. Because as an entrepreneur, and I believe a lot of us whose parents might have been immigrants, whose parents have different backgrounds, and we're in this country, a lot of us are entrepreneurs in our own way. Even if we're at a large company, we're still an entrepreneurial mindset. And the one thing that we all know really well is that when things come up that you don't like and they don't work out, you have to learn to iterate and you have to learn to pivot. And that is something that I think is very important to showcase when you are pitching.
So tell me, why wine? What opportunities did you see? And is this obviously a product that you care about or products because you have decided to go this route?
It happened to be wine. It was very fortuitous. I'm very lucky that it is a product that I like. I really believe that you should look into things and connect yourself with things that you enjoy and you have fun with. Because when you're in our world, in the startup space, whatever it is you're doing, when you put your all in, the work product comes out better. It doesn't mean you have to work 7 days a week around the clock, but when it's something you're excited and you're passionate about, the work product does come out better. What I really like about wine is it is a community product. People have tried many times single serve wines. The challenge with single serve wines is wine is something that you live, you share, you do with other people. With beer, you can sit down with six other people, half a dozen, and you can all have a different beer and it's okay. The concept of wine is you open up a bottle, you let it breathe, you all share it together. You talk about the wine together. It is a community-based product. I love community-based items. I believe that together we can all do so much and it is genuinely more fun. I grew up in a household where down in Orange County in California, my parents came from India and they had a huge network of Indian people, South Asian people in Orange County. And I grew up, there was always people around, people in our home, people going around, people going everywhere. It wasn't until I went to college that I realized from some people, it's not that way. I thought it was that way for everybody all the time, that your house is an open house, right? And I loved it. I loved the concept. And so anything that is community based for me gets me very excited. And so that's why wine was a really fun product to be in at this point in time.
What does your family think about it? Because you obviously didn't go into bio pre-med. So how did that conversation go down?
Stephanie, it's been hard with my family. They're good. It's not even just about that. It's about wine. It's more of I did something that was not traditional.
Yeah.
I remember applying to business school, and my parents didn't really understand what it was, why I'm going, what's happening. They were very supportive. My parents were very supportive of education in any way, shape, or form, which is amazing. But it was different, right? And so it was hard. I had achieved some great success. I was at quite a few startups. I was at a company where I was a COO, CFO at the company in 2021, and we sold the company during a pandemic while I had my second child. I was pregnant with her and gave birth during the diligence process. Everybody was excited for me, but I did my first podcast ever a couple years ago now, let's say maybe 2022, right? Or 2023. I think it was 2022, 2023. And it was on a podcast by someone named Jay Shetty. And he is Indian, and my parents know of him.
I love Jay
And it
Shetty.
was my first podcast. I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember going in to record at his house, and there was cameras everywhere. And I had just come out of our version of being in the pandemic. And I was like, oh, you record the podcast? And he said to me, okay, so you've never really seen my podcast because it's all recorded. So I was a little bit embarrassed about that. But what came from it, Stephanie, was really cool. My dad and mom watched the podcast, and they heard me in a different way than they ever had heard me before.
Mhm.
And my dad looked at me differently with pride. And it was the first time I really saw my dad say, oh, she's done something. And there's a part of me a little bit that was bothered that it took me going on this podcast for my parents to see that. At the same time, it was really nice to see that my parents looked at me in a way and said, okay, she's done something. Because we're always kids to our parents too, right? And then, for parents who grew up in a different world, and my parents were arranged marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad said hi to my mom. My mom didn't even say hi back. They met in India. They were married, and she left her country and she came here to the
Yeah.
US. So it's just different for them, but it's nice that they now have an appreciation and respect for what I have created. And it's Stephanie, it really feels good.
What a hell of a podcast to go on for your first time. So no embarrassment there. I mean, it's a completely different experience to podcast, and now it's become more well known, but I do think, and Jay Shetty is one of those really well known folks, not even just in South Asian communities, but there's just this calm and this vibe that he gives out that people just love. And so I want to shift a little bit, because it sounds like we both had some pretty interesting pregnancies during times where we are very driven, as one of your words. What are some of the messages that you want to communicate to your children?
Oh, that is such a good question. I have so many things that I want to communicate to my children in so many different ways.
It'll be so awesome to play this back for them, like, in the future as well.
I have never been more driven in my whole entire life until I had kids. I went from having 100 things in a day to do to a million things in a day to do. And there's no way I was going to get it done. And there's an analogy, which I think you've heard so many times, is you have so many balls you can juggle. You have to be able to identify what are the glass balls and what are the rubber balls.
Mm.
Because it's okay if you drop the rubber balls because you can pick them back up. So what makes you really good is being able to quickly identify which are the balls that are the glass balls because you don't want to drop those. When I had kids, it was my first child. I had a series of complications and challenges. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through in my whole entire life. And I got so good so fast at identifying which were the glass balls. And one of the glass balls that was of utmost importance, right under my child's health, my husband's health, all of that, right, was taking care of myself. And I wasn't working at the time. And I went back to work full time at a company, the company we later sold, when my son was 7 weeks old and my husband was traveling internationally. He would go for 2 weeks at a time and he was always gone. And it was one of the best things I ever did because that was my form of self-care. I got to go to work and do a really good job at what I knew how to do well. And it made me feel better about myself. And then I got the opportunity to go home and then do the best I could as a mother. But first, I took care of myself from a work standpoint and did the things that made me feel good and proud about who I am. And then I went home and then I was the mother to my son. And I ended up being a better mother to my child because of what I did. So many people in my community were raised with the concept of sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
You must sacrifice. You must take care of your children and everyone else around you first. And even more so for women to be that way.
Yes.
You cannot pour from an empty cup. And you have to take care of yourself. So what would be something I would tell my children? I was a better mom to them because I took care of myself. They will be better to their peers, to their spouses, should they get married, to their children, should they have children, that they will be stronger and better when they take care of themselves first. So the same way I had to do that, even though they are the two most beautiful, important things to me in the whole world, I had to take care of myself first. They must also take care of themselves first because they cannot also pour from an empty cup.
How do you transmit that to young kids?
I am still learning. My kids are 7 and 5 years old, and I think I've made a lot of great progress with my son, and he's only 7. We work through things by having conversations and talking about it. And it is hard because it takes more time to do it that way. And as a working mom, time is our biggest constraint.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so how do you take the time to do that? So I've come up with little things with my son. For example, we have something we call a pause. Because when a kid wants something and they want to throw a tantrum, they want to throw the tantrum then. We say, hey, let's take a pause. Because I'm in the middle of a work thing. I have a phone call. I'm waiting for a package. Something is happening. A pause means I'm going to give you your respect and we're going to talk about it later, but I just can't talk about it right now because I'm in the middle of something. And once we do that stuff a few times, he starts to get the rhythm of it and do it with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think trust is a really big deal with children. I found it to be very helpful. I don't give them I don't want to use the word threat, but I don't give them empty threat. So if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to follow through with it. If I say you're not going to get a treat on this, you're not going to get it. But what I do with that is I build trust with them over time. And that for me is very nice.
Absolutely. I mean, mine are 14 and 11, so it's been amazing to kind of see the progression. And also, there's challenges that, you continue to evolve as a parent and as a person, as you see their personality and their way of coping with things. Well, I'm wondering, as you progress your company and look to beyond, what are you hoping, to leave in terms of your legacy?
2 little happy children. That's the first thing that comes to my mind is 2 little happy children. We're just talking about kids.
Yeah.
In regards to other things I would like to leave in regards to a legacy. And to me, these things are really important. It's not the Neha show. I want as many women out there to learn and share and talk about personal finance as much as possible.
Yes.
I don't even, personal finance is such a tedious kind of thing to it. It should almost just be money matters. You should just talk about financial freedom and money matters. And if I share something with you, Stephanie, and one day you share it with someone else and someone else shares it with someone else, I would love for multiple communities to grow and for women to just talk about these things all the time, more and more. I grew up in a household, my dad was the financial planner, and our dinner table conversations would be about interest rates. So it's so easy that when things were going on in the market, that's what I was keeping my eye out for. We talk about all these other things all the time with kids and what's happening in their school and everything else. And I would love for more and more women, when they're together, to be talking about things happening at work, challenges and struggles, and women to really be there to support and help each other. And so it's not necessarily my legacy, but I would love that as we all, me, you, so many of us continue to do, is that we hopefully create this permeating effect of people sharing information amongst each other in the next, generation, 2 generations, because the world that my daughter is growing up in is so different than the world I grew up in. As much as we all say things need to change, things aren't great, she's growing up in a world where women play sports and she doesn't know any different. My daughter is 5. She's growing up in a world where her mom works and does all these cool things, and that's all she knows. And that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing I work with clients on, especially in couples, like where do you think that women can start in terms of learning about personal finance? Because obviously, when I started learning it, yeah, it was really daunting. But I think I'm on this in the same vein as you because like I run the financial aspects of this household, that those things are really important. My middle schooler, I was like, the only class that's non-negotiable is taking finance in middle school. And it was amazing. Like they taught her about stocks and bonds. They had to plan a trip down to like the transportation, how much for food, how much for hotel. And so obviously that's a rarity in like my generation. So where should people start as adult women or could?
I would start as conversations when you're with other people at a dinner table. What are people doing? Why are they doing? If somebody's buying real estate, how are they doing it? You refinanced your house. I'm not asking you to say this on the podcast, but why did you refinance it? What was your rate before? There's a sense of comfort that comes up when we start to have communication. And I think that's actually the biggest thing. It shouldn't be some daunting thing where you need to go read, an encyclopedia set of so many books on personal finance. It's just having conversations with other people that you normally are around. I think that's really important. I would come up with the goal. So if I was to tell someone right now today, what is the one thing you should do? Is every Friday when you're at dinner, whoever you're at dinner with for 1 month, for 30 days, if that's so manageable, that's 4 Fridays potentially, right? For 4 Fridays, make sure that you talk about anything that is money matters that comes to your mind that Friday at dinner for 1 month. Just do that for 1 month. You will be amazed how that will start to shift the way that you think throughout the rest of the week. Think about it now. We just had a conversation about your house and refinancing, and you shared some more information with me, and we started to go into it a little bit more. Then over the course of the next week, it'll be in my mind. It'll just be a thought that's percolating there. Then next Friday, I talk to somebody else about what are they doing? What are happening with the interest rates in regards to the real estate market? Oh, wait a minute. How is it different in the Bay Area versus in Southern California, right? One thing after another will start to come up. It's like, what's daunting to me? Learning how to do makeup. Right? Like it's like there's so many colors and styles and variations and things keep changing of what's cool and not cool. And you know what I learned? I try a few things and then every once in a while I'll add something a little different. I'll have fun with it. I won't. People will talk about it in conversation with me. When I stopped making it daunting, and I don't need to overdo it. I don't need to do a full face of makeup like everybody else does. I love my skin color. I'm good, right? Like I'm good where I am. It's the same thing with personal finance. I work in mergers and acquisitions, so I'm going to do X amount of studying and research. Someone else doesn't need to. Someone's a makeup artist. They need to know how to do full faces on multiple different types of people and multiple different types of weather setting and so many other variables around it. Is it for a set? Is it for a podcast? Is it for someone's going to a party? I don't know with makeup, right? So that's how I look at these things, right? Everything is daunting until you know how to do it.
Absolutely.
And it's also an
Okay.
iterative process. So it's not that you have to have it all figured out, just like makeup and hair.
Absolutely. And, talking with you, I realized, wow, I do know a couple things, and so it is really important, and to even look at and having a pulse on how many single family homes are in inventory in the Bay Area, in this area, versus like condos that are being built and all those kinds of things. So they're just like, I love this kind of talk. And I think, thank you so much for having this real talk about finance and children and all that, because I think that's what we need so much more of.
Of course. I completely agree. And I think it's amazing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Thank you for listening. We would love for you to subscribe to the podcast and join our community on all our socials at colorsuccesspodcast.com. Looking forward to you checking out my memoir, Cancel the Filter, Realities of a Psychologist, Podcaster, and Working Mother of Color, on Amazon and wherever books are sold. I'd love to hear your Cancel the Filter moments.